kind of trickles down into a little bit of Weber, I think, right? No,
No.
zero.
Okay.
I'm thinking of the advanced classes.
Yeah.
So strictly at Schreiber. And first, let's start with approving the minutes from last month's meeting. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Feeney, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and Dr. Baer, our new principal at Schreiber High School. Welcome.
Great, thank you. So we have, as indicated, we have a presentation today of the college level courses, and specifically, most of the presentation will focus on the AP, the advanced placement data for the last 5 years at Schreiber. It's a presentation that is filled with a lot of numbers, a lot of charts. We have printed copies for the audience. This will be posted on the website. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on the data. We're going to try to present a broad overview of the data, look for some trends, and get it out there. And I think an important part of this is in many ways sort of a foundation presentation, whereas here's where we are, and each year we'll check in, we'll see the progress, it'll be easier to look at this, people have a better understanding, and then we'll be able to share our trends and our improvements. There's a lot of wonderful stuff to look at, and some really impressive results, and we have some other areas that we need to look at, and that's all part of reviewing data. So I always like to begin these presentations reminding everybody that a school, a district, we're not just a bunch of data points, and we're not exclusively about test results, we're not exclusively about any one piece of a score. So already this year we've had some wonderful success. We've had at the high school 5 students designated National Merit semifinalists, 28 designated as commended students, 10 students selected for participation or alternates in the NISMOL State Conference, 97 students recognized as outstanding scholars by the College Board, and 256 as AP scholars. We've also had students doing service, participating in our Unity Day, doing all these activities that make high school a robust and memorable experience for students. So college level courses, we have 2 types of college level courses at the high school right now. This slide just presents a general overview of those. A lot of people are familiar with the advanced placement courses. Those are courses offered through the College Board. They've got to be approved. They're audited by the College Board. Most of the AP courses end with a 3-hour exam given in May. Exams are scored typically in June on a scale of 1 to 5, and scores are released usually in early to mid-July. Sometimes colleges can give college credit for an AP exam. The minimum is usually 3. Sometimes it needs to be a 4 or 5. So it really depends, and it's important for students, families, and certainly our counselors are aware of what those different policies are. Students, families pay a fee. That fee goes directly to the College Board. Those are advanced placement courses. There are also dual enrollment courses. Those courses are also college level courses, but they're offered in partnership with local colleges or universities. So here in Long Island, it could be with Adelphi, it could be with Molloy, St. John's, Stony Brook, Farmingdale, a wide variety of universities who participate in these. Courses are approved by the local college, the local university. The Schreiber teacher becomes essentially an adjunct teacher for the college. And often students will get rights to, engage and be part of, the college, the library system, whatever it might be. For these dual enrollment courses, students will earn college credit for completion of the course, and they will get an actual college transcript, right, with 1 or 2 courses on it and their grade they can then use, maybe transfer to the college they apply to or attend. The fee for this goes to the partner college, doesn't go to the college board, and it's almost always a significantly reduced tuition fee, typically a third of what you might pay for tuition. But of course, the transfer policy can vary from school to school. So Schreiber does offer dual enrollment courses. We offer clearly a lot of advanced placement courses, and we're going to share all those numbers. It's very easy to track those numbers and have them and share them. The dual enrollment's been a little more challenging to track, and then we'll talk about that. But this is the range of courses that are eligible for dual enrollment. And I'm not sure, sometimes students or the families may not be fully aware of that, but this is it. Just signing up for the course doesn't mean it's a dual enrollment for you. You gotta go through it. And early in the year, typically in the first few months, you have to pay your fee to your local college, the partner college, and register through them. And teachers at the end of the course will submit the grades. They've got a roster, so they know who is taking it as a formally sort of a dual enrollment course. And that's where we've struggled a little bit in terms of being able to track exactly. So we're still working on kind of chasing that down and getting a clear sense of how many students have availed themselves of registering for these courses as dual enrollment credit. But this is something that's on our radar. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students. I think AP and College Board is not the only game in town in terms of giving students a college level course experience. And we don't want to forget that, because these kinds of courses can really fill gaps where, the College Board doesn't have any AP business courses, for example. College Board, not every science, sometimes you can do a college level science elective that doesn't have an AP class. So there are really a lot of options for students, and a lot of districts will make all of their business courses dual enrollment, for example. That's easy to do, and in some of the other areas. So this is, I think, an area of good growth where we can bring some more dual enrollments. I've spoken with Dr. Bear and her leadership team, and they're very excited as well to bring this, not only more opportunities, but greater awareness, and publicize this and make folks aware of it. So the next level of college level courses are the advanced placement courses. We have a wide range of those. Those are typically exclusively for high school students, typically 10 through 12. There are ninth graders that do take some AP courses, but this is what's more familiar to a lot of people. At this point, this is where you're going to see a lot of data, but I do want to turn the presentation over to Dr. Bear, and she can go through.
Good morning, everyone. So on this next slide, you can see the number of students at Schreiber who did participate in an AP exam. So this is an unduplicated number. This year, we have 717 students who are currently enrolled in an AP course, and each of those courses ends in at least one exam. So there are cases such as Physics C, where there are 2 exams taken, or Economics, where there are 2 exams taken as well. So we can talk about that. This number that you see for 2022, out of that 710, 282 of those students are seniors and 240 are juniors. So it does certainly skew toward the 11th and 12th grade students. Here you can see the number of exams, and in 2022 we had a record number of exams. This means that we had more students taking 2 or more exams. And again, seniors account for most of this number, so about half of that 1663 would be a senior taking 2 or more exams. And you see that our participation rate, we have it up in the corner, is 60% higher than the Nassau County average. So we do have an open enrollment policy. This is something we feel very strongly about. It removes some of the barriers to saying who is eligible to and not to take an AP exam. we want to make sure that students have the opportunity to participate in rigorous curricula and select that coursework. What goes into that is really preparing students to make sure that they do have the skills necessary to be successful. It's not just, you can take that class, we wish you the best. It's how do we make sure that you're ready to be successful in that classroom? And you'll see that we have a wide variety of courses for students to take. And we're really trying to delve into that data to see who the students are who are taking the courses, whether it's one over their high school career or multiple courses each year ending in an AP exam. Our passing rate, we'll talk about the scoring in just a minute, accounts for any students who are scoring a 3 or higher on an AP exam. So it's scored on 5 points, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And you see that Schreiber is above the Nassau County passing rate each year. As you know, 2020, the exams looked very different. We had to make a quick shift to an all-digital platform, which adjusted our typical 3-hour in-person paper exams. With few exceptions, there had been digital in the past with languages. But for the most part, you were getting a paper packet, whether you were doing multiple choice or free response, more essay type questions, and you were doing it in person with a proctor in maybe a gym or a classroom. Suddenly the exams turned into digital exams that were being taken at home, which came certainly with some challenge when you talk about internet connectivity, twins who may be taking the same test in a household and what needed to happen for that. And the assessments went down to 45 minutes. They were mostly focused on multiple choice, though there were free response opportunities that looked different by exam. In particular, when you think about physics and calculus, where it may have been prohibitive to try to type a response, College Board was responsive in saying, you can do this on a separate piece of paper. Here are the opportunities that you have to upload it, or you can do it right in the platform wherever your comfort level is. They didn't want it to hinder the way that students were able to engage. Also music theory. So you had manuscript paper and had to submit things that way. Oh, you have animations on that one. So here we have the AP Scholars, and you can see that on the far left, this would be students who take 3 or more exams in their high school career with scores of at least 3. And as you move to the right, the score increases. So the Scholar Honor has a 3.25 score on at least 3 exams, and an average score of 3.5 on 3 of 5 exams, and up to National Scholar, which was discontinued in 2021. So College Board has done some research to determine that students who take at least 1 AP exam over their high school career have a higher level of college completion if they decide to move on to a post-secondary institution. That increase continues up to 5 exams taken over their high school career. And there is no significant difference in college completion once you get past 5. So a lot of the conversation I'm hearing at the College Board level now is, how do we emphasize the importance of accessing at least 1 rigorous course ending in an AP exam without overburdening our students who now think that they need to take 5, 6, 7 AP exams a year and self-study for ones that we don't offer at Schreiber. There's a point of diminishing returns. So we're trying to really make sure the message is everyone has an opportunity. There is open enrollment. However, we need to find that balance.
And if I can, that's an important part of why they discontinued the National Scholar recognition. They did not want to encourage kids and hold this out as a desired target to take 8 exams. And so they discontinued that recognition to the dismay of many students, especially here in the North Shore of Long Island, right? But that's so much the culture here. But trying to communicate to students, families, especially during the college application process, that no, relax, you don't have to take, all APs all the time, and avail yourself of the opportunity to take a wide range of classes in different areas. They don't all have to be college level courses, because at the end of the day, who in college has really taken more than 4 classes, 5 classes any given semester? So nobody does, and rarely does that happen. And then we've got students in, here we get a block schedule, but maybe a 9-period day who are taking 5, 6 college level classes. It's not sustainable and it's not healthy. That's not a message everyone wants to hear, but that's College Board is there, and we want to try to communicate that as well.
Here you can see the 5-point scale for scoring on an AP exam, 5 being the highest. We count 3 and higher as being a typical passing rate. With 1 or 2, you'll see how we separate that data. And I did speak a little bit about the significant change for the 2020 exams. The scores that you'll see as we go through each exam, you'll see a spike in the scores. So this is the importance of looking at longitudinal data. We're not looking at one data point as the be-all, end-all. This is how we're doing or how we're not doing. This is part of our data story. So we're looking at how did we compare to the county, how did we compare to the state, and how did we compare nationally. And then when we start drilling down to instructional planning reports, where are the areas of opportunity, whether we're looking by unit or topic. You can even look at some of the math assessments and see calculator use versus no calculator use. And these are really to let us know where the opportunities are to support our students in learning and skills versus what did we do for this number on a piece of paper. What does that really mean? So we're looking at how this overall contributes to our students being prepared in these content areas. Is there anything else you wanted to add about 2020?
Perfect.
Here is a summary slide. You can look at our overall score distribution. So you see the passing of 3, 4, and 5 just above the line, and you can look over the last 5 years, the number of exams. So this isn't number of students, this is number of exams and percentage where students received a passing score.
This is a lot to absorb, so, and this will be the format, this is the overall for all of the exams. We're gonna break it down by subject, and we're gonna go through those quickly, but if you look, once again, reiterate what Dr. Baer said, look across, you see the overall passing rate in terms of the percentage of exams earning scores of 3, 4, 5. That's going to be in the bottom, that bottom row on the right. Right now we have it highlighted in yellow. We won't on the remaining slides. And you see the number of 5s, number of 4s, number of 3s, and then the second column in each section, that's the percentage. College Board typically divvies that up to quintiles. So you get about 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20% in terms of the distribution. Typically when I look at these, to be successful in an AP course, it doesn't mean you have to score a 3, 4, 5. Going through the course in itself is a success, right? And working on it. The one score I do worry a little bit about are those 1s at the bottom. So, I think the focus on those 1s, if you get to the exam and you're earning a 1, we got to figure out what might be going on. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes if you're a senior and you're taking a bunch of exams, you might sort of check out, but that's not frequent. And, looking at those 1s and the percentage of 1s, becomes something that's especially worthwhile. We want kids to be able to get, the 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s.
And here you can see where the 2020 exams, we do have a higher passing rate than the years around it. That is due to the nature of the exams. And if you look at the 2021 school year, you see a drop in that number. So that is nationwide, that there was a significant difference between the 2 years, and the challenge both of returning to longer exams and the fact that there was instruction that was interrupted. So that was nationwide, worldwide actually, for every single student. And it's not just about the interruption of instruction, it's about those spiraled skills and those foundational skills that students need and how we're recovering from that. So that goes back into the importance of that instructional planning report, because we need to see how we can address some of those concerns.
Can I ask just a quick question? Some portion of students they take the class, but they don't take the exam. Do you have a general sense of what portion of students that is?
It's a very low number. We do require students to be taking the exam, so if they do not take the exam, what ends up happening is that instead of AP on the transcript, it turns into an honors class. So it is taken out of that total number at the end of the year. Now, of course, there are exceptions to, I didn't feel like going to the exam, I just slept in. That's a very rare circumstance. It would typically be something that would be more of an excused absence or a life event that came up that would preclude a student from showing up to the exam. So I can get that exact number for you.
So that's changed, since I went to school, but, so if you're talking about like 20 as of 1,600, not like 150 out of 1,600.
I think 20 would still be high, but I can
Okay,
certainly.
no, that's fine, no, I don't,
With the exception of the
Okay.
2020 exam,
Sure.
Yes.
where not everyone was required here at trial.
Okay, no, thank you.
And it's different with the College Board now. They tried to start this in 1920, but then the world shut down. So they tried to start in the 1920 school year.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I will say 2019, 2020, just for clarity. So the College Board tried to start in that year a shift to collecting fees earlier. Their research indicated that students who committed to taking an exam earlier, I don't think this pertains to North Shore or Long Island school districts, but they were more likely to commit to taking the exam and really buy in to the full course. So they were trying to increase the number of students who took the exam while in an AP course. So they also reinforced this by trying to charge a $40 cancellation fee. And the 2019-2020 school year, they ended up canceling that. Same thing for the following year, but it has been back into effect from last year and this year. So we have a really good pulse on a student who paid for an exam and is now getting a refund because we have to figure out that refund less $40. So now we can get into the separate exams. When you look at these score distributions, Calculus AB is slightly different than some of the other math courses. We do have students who are taking this particular exam who are not accelerated. So they would be coming from 11th grade in Algebra 2 with the opportunity to take a 6x6. That means they receive 50% more instruction than a traditional math class. And they're including both pre-calculus and calculus AB in the same course. So they're basically getting 2 years of coursework in that year and a half. It gives them an opportunity to take an AP exam when they previously did not accelerate. So this sort of speaks into our values of open enrollment. So finding an opportunity for someone to be able to take an AP exam if they didn't accelerate starting in Schreiber, or they came to Schreiber High School and didn't have that at their prior school, or in a different state, in a different country. So this increases the access for some students who didn't previously have it. Calculus BC would be the more advanced version of the calculus options. These would traditionally be students who have been accelerated throughout their math career at Schreiber, and if they attended at Weber as well, they would be the accelerated students there. There is a subset of scores when you take Calculus BC that includes the AB subset, so you'd be able to compare, but you'd really be looking at the more traditionally advanced math students versus someone who followed the non-accelerated path. We have statistics as well. This would be more of an elective type class. So if you have students who are really interested in the statistical side, we have students who are interested in business as well. And this just plays into the overall curriculum that the students would follow in order to be prepared for business ventures or just a general interest in statistics. We do offer both Computer Science A and Computer Science Principles. These courses are for students who have more of an interest in coding, a different side of really looking at being prepared in the digital world. You do have it in front of you, so I want to give you the right amount of time to look at the data on the screen without trying to make you memorize everything that we have on the screen. You see that Computer Science Principles is a newer course. We offered it for the first time in 2019-20. This particular class, in addition to the exam, has a portfolio-based component. So students submit 2 different parts for this exam, one being the test, one being a separate project. We do have a number of history courses that are available in AP exams at Schreiber High School. We offer 8 of the 9 currently available social studies classes as APs. European history, you'll notice that the numbers are decreasing. That is because we started offering AP World History, which are offered to 10th graders. I did speak with our chairperson about this, and students who might still have an interest in European history, if they don't have room in their schedule in 10th grade and prefer to take world at that point, we do have some 11th graders who also take European history. That really comes with offering more options. At some point, we're pulling the same students. So you might see one test, the enrollment is going down while another one was added or increases. So it's important to look at the overall picture, where the students are coming from and where they would take it in their schedule.
The AP World is actually a better fit for 10th graders because it lines up with their Regents course and the Regents exam that they're required to take a little better.
And you see US history, we have healthy numbers. This year we have currently 195 students enrolled, which is approximately half of the 11th grade students. And here you see world history. We did start offering it in 2020, 2021. And this would account for some of the numbers that are decreasing in European history. This year in grade 10, we have 243 students. Now this is the largest class that we have at Schreiber. Class, meaning the grade 10 class is the largest. So we're looking at approximately half of the students in grade 10 are enrolled in this class. When students take AP Economics, they end up taking both the macro and the micro exam at the end of the year. So you'll notice that the numbers match. It's the same population of students taking each exam. And this is interesting to go back to the instructional planning reports because we can see if students have a particular strength in macro versus micro and really break down some of the opportunities we have to address areas where students may not be as confident or performing as strongly. Here's the micro, same students as the macro exam.
No.
Comparative government and politics has turned into a bit more of a niche program where students who are looking for additional electives in the area of social studies are enrolling in this class. You see that the numbers are changing and that correlates with the increased number of offerings that we've had in the department. In US government and politics, we have 134 students this year. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm going to try that again. Psychology, we have 134 students this year. And traditionally, we've had more female students in their junior year taking this class. So what's really interesting is with that increased number, we're seeing an increased number of male participants in the class as well. So we're trying to look at really that breakdown of the students who are actually enrolled in the class and how we can make sure that it's distributed and really representing our population. Last year, we decided to make a change and implement this being the first year where English language arts, you are able to take your AP exam as an 11th grader, as opposed to taking it as an elective. So prior to the 2021-2022 school year, students were taking this in addition to a grade 11 class. Now they're able to take this as their grade 11 English class. That matches what we have been doing with English literature. Students always had the option to take this as their senior year English class. And now we'll move into the science courses. We do offer a number of AP science classes as well. Here you see biology in 2019, 2020. We only had 17 students who did participate in the exam. Again, it was optional with the transition to digital exams. And then we're right back up to 43, 42. We're in about the 40s again this year. Environmental science has been fairly consistent. We do offer multiple physics exams. So we have Physics 1 and Physics 2 are different students who are taking the exam. And then when we have students who are involved in Physics C, they end up taking both exams. So here you see the first of two exams, and you see again, like macro and micro, the numbers are the same between the two assessments. They're the same group of students. And this also contributes to 11th and 12th graders taking multiple exams in a year, as opposed to 10th graders who may be taking one exam in a year. So if you're taking a course that requires 2 exams, you're already at 2 or more exams.
Just the physics 1 and 2, the difference, that's an algebra-based physics, and the physics C is calculus-based.
A huge jump from 60 to 100. The Physics C.
Oh, you're looking at the passing rate? Mm-hmm. And if you see that it's on one of the Physics C exams, you see that big jump. And on the mechanics exam, it's 100 for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So this goes into determining where there's an opportunity to better support students in each of those topics. That would certainly speak to it. Spanish language was offered to our native Spanish-speaking students who were maybe younger. So they could be 10th graders or 11th graders who were participating in AP Spanish language, whereas their senior year, they might be working toward also taking Spanish literature. This is slightly different than what we've been doing in the past. We had people who were non-native speakers only participating in Spanish literature, which you'll see on the next slide. We've now opened it up so that students can take one exam, either one that they're comfortable with, or both exams year after year. So traditionally, the language exam would be in an 11th grade year for a non-native speaker, and the literature exam would be for the seniors. So we have a higher participation rate in language. You see 68 students in 21-22, and a lower rate in literature. So we do have a shift more toward non-native speakers in language. Here you see participation in French, Italian, we are one of the fewer and fewer schools that is still offering AP Latin as an option. You can see that art history is recently implemented at Schreiber High School. We began in 2019-20. This is in the art department. Some schools have it in the history department, so I'm thrilled as a former director of music and art myself that this is part of the art department so that we can have students who are participating in more of a performance-based art class where they are engaged in photography or drawing and painting, and can round out their education with art history, learning about the importance of what came before and how it's really influenced what we do today. The art portfolios, there are 3 separate portfolios. You have a 2D, a 3D, and a drawing portfolio. Students can select which course they would like to take to align with each of those. At Schreiber, our 2D would tend to be more of the digital art side. So if you are in a photo class and more manipulating the work that you're doing on the computer, so computer-based class versus drawing would be more of the sketching, drawing, painting. They submit different portfolios. Those portfolios have changed since the 18-19 school year. Students are now submitting fewer pieces, but they have to go more in depth. So it's not just about submitting the artwork and saying, please evaluate the work that I've created. You have to submit a reflective component. You have to talk about the process of how you came up with that work, what your influences were, and really what each step was along the way as you created this work. So it was a big shift from solely the artwork itself to really the process. And that accounts for 60% of the score, actually. It's pretty significant. Here's drawing. And this will be the first year students can submit a 3D portfolio, so that's why you don't see 3D on there. Music theory is the AP music option that's available through the College Board. There are 2 scores that go into it. One of them is oral skills, so students are required to sight sing and demonstrate that they can create and match pitches and sounds and be able to read music. And then there's a written portion as well. So here you can see a summary by content area. So if you wanted just a couple of quick charts to be able to see how we've done with passing rates over time, this is the slide for you.
Just going back to those slides, the problem with those slides, of course, yeah, you get that number, the overall passing trend, but it doesn't give a context. You don't see necessarily if you're getting more students in. I personally don't mind a decrease in a passing rate if we're getting more kids in there. And I would argue that, especially if you look at the world, which I think has a 92% passing rate, I mean, that's extraordinary. For me, that tells me that we should probably get a few more kids in there. And I wouldn't mind seeing a lower passing rate to give more students the opportunity to experience that. Because clearly the teachers are doing an extraordinary job with the curriculum and with the students. With a large number of kids with that high of a passing rate. So when you're looking at those individual passing rate numbers, that's why we gave all that detail before, which is an overabundance of data, but it does help provide a context.
And so when we're looking beyond just the scores, so if we think about 2019, 2020 with an increase of scores worldwide, and then the decrease the following year, it's important to look at how that fits into our students performing compared to other students in New York State and across the nation. So here you can see what our average was for each of the exams, what our passing rate was for each of these exams, and then how we compare. Chemistry was one that really stood out and was spoken about by the College Board quite frequently when we came back in 2020, 2021. The scores decreased nationwide. So when we're looking at our scores going, why did they go down so much? And then we see that it compared and it's right in line with how other students were performing, and then drill down to see where we have opportunities for growth. We're seeing consistency. So in those instructional planning reports, we can see by topic how we compared in addition just to the score overall.
I do want to just point out, in 2022, for whatever reason, the English language exam was really challenging. And it's not reflected in our scores. Our kids did as well as they've done in the past. We have a relatively small population taking it, but with an average score of just over 4, extraordinary. But the average in the US went down significantly.
And when we look at that particular exam at the end of this year, the scores are released over the summer, we'll notice a difference because now that will be the option for all students to take as their 11th grade English class. So we'll have a larger population accessing this particular exam. So So as we just looked at a tremendous amount of data, let's tell you what the data shows us overall. So in preparation for each of these exams, students are working with their teachers every day in classes or in their 4x6, 4 days out of every 6 days in a cycle. They're working on these topics, these big ideas, and the skill sets required to be successful on the exam. As we get closer to the exams, the first 2 full weeks of May, teachers are providing extra help opportunities, additional AP exam preparation to make sure that students have an opportunity to review. In addition to that, College Board, since the 2019-2020 school year, has developed an entire YouTube channel. They have AP Classroom that provides students with access to authentic assessment materials. That includes multiple choice questions, free response questions. They're looking at the language used in the exam itself, so they're getting used to what that testing scenario would look like. We have seen really strong results on many of our AP exams, and comparing nationally and within New York State, we are scoring at or above in many of these areas. The best part to me is the fact that we've had an increase in the number of students who are participating and the exams that we're offering to really give students an opportunity to participate in a College Board rigorous course while still following some things that they need to fulfill for graduation anyway, so it's a class that they need to take anyway, or a class of interest that would be an elective. As I kind of mentioned earlier, we do need to keep an eye on the total number that students are taking, so we want them to have the opportunity to take a class without taking all of the classes and all of the assessments, so we'll keep working on finding that balance. And you see that, this is part of an overall data story. So we're not looking at one particular data point and that is telling us all the information we need. You can see how we've drilled down to look at the number of students enrolled, the number of exams that were taken, how we compare, and what is happening over time. And as I mentioned, open enrollment really encourages students to participate while focusing on how we can best prepare them. So over half, so it's 56% of our class of 22 who just graduated earned a passing score, which is 3 or higher, on at least one exam over their high school career. As we look down in the subgroups, there was not a significant difference between male and female students who were taking AP exams. It was split pretty evenly. Although our male students had a higher passing rate, about 12% higher than our female students, the participation rate was split and the number of exams taken was split. We did see a disparity in AP participation by socioeconomic group. So the way that we look at that is students who are eligible for a free exam. So that fee reduction lets us know that students qualify for free or reduced lunch and other indicators. Additionally, our Hispanic and Latino population is underrepresented as compared to the demographics of the school. So we weren't just looking at how evenly it was split, we were looking at how does that compare to our overall student population. So that definitely is an area of growth for us. So we can take a look at how we are preparing students, how we are really advertising these classes as available and accessible to all, and the things that we can do to make sure that students are successful. So as we look ahead, we have spoken a lot about the instructional planning reports today. So these are shared with our chair people to work with staff during department meetings to have conversations about where one teacher may be having great success with their class and how can they share best practices, what are the opportunities that we have to work with the expertise within the group, and then certainly professional development opportunities, whether we bring somebody in from the outside, like the NGSS standards, or we have a professional development workshop day, a conference that our social studies teachers will be attending. So we're looking for those opportunities to make sure that our professionals have access to the best information and the best strategies to bring back to our students.
Just that professional development, I think, is really important. I mean, we're in this wonderful peninsula here in Port Washington, but it should not be an island. And I think too often it's sort of the teachers, well, I'm an island, I'm out here. The resources are incredible. Dr. Bear spoke a little bit about what College Board is trying to put out. But even when you collaborate, work with other schools and you go to some of their conferences, if you participate in their week-long summer institutes, those are such wonderful learning opportunities. My experience has been that one of the best professional development opportunities for teachers, for AP teachers, has been a chance to be an AP reader. That is, to spend a week in June where you are grading AP exams from across the country. There is no better way to get a sense of what the expectations are, what you should look for, and how these exams are going to be evaluated. And I know in my previous position, I can correlate participation in as an AP reader to an increase in scores. And I had teachers who loved it. It's hard work. You're like working like a dog day in and day out for a week, but they have always found it to be a real valuable experience. So it's a big commitment. You're away from your school, your family for a week. Maybe they send you to Lincoln, nothing wrong with Lincoln, Nebraska, but maybe they send you there, maybe they send you, they're not sending you to Orlando or to Hawaii, right? They're sending you to places where, okay, let's stay in the hotel and continue to grade. But those are great professional development experiences, and we want to communicate to the faculty, this is open to you if you want to avail yourself of it. So as we look at data, right, this doesn't just change, it doesn't just happen. And we want to remind everyone, all this growth, we're going to grow as a school, as a district, as a professional staff. You really got to connect the teacher collaboration. We have to have supervisory leadership. We need formative assessments, professional development, both within and outside of the school. We need to be able to work on our curriculum and support that. And we have to look at student data. And, looking at student data does not mean that that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't. But looking at student data can at least guide us to make sure that we are offering the best experience possible to students who have decided that they're ready to challenge themselves in, say, an AP course. And it's not inconceivable to provide additional support. Sometimes you do provide an extra lab day and a lab experience, or maybe some AIS, whatever it might be, to support those students who are challenging themselves in an AP course. Just because you're in an AP course doesn't mean that it's hands-off. What? You're in an AP, you do it on yourself. No, that's ridiculous. When kids go to college, colleges have entire support structures for kids who might be struggling in those college classes. Sometimes I think we view, well, you're an AP student, you're on your own, figure it out. And that's a sort of a model we want to move away from, where as a school, as a district, as a community, we can do more to support those kids so they can be successful. And a reminder that the results of any one examination, it's only a snapshot in time. We look for trends. We don't want to get too carried away, too excited, too, overly concerned. We look at it, we're level-headed. Hey, well, what happened this year? Why was it so successful? Why do you have a little drop? You tell me. And that's what we want to move to the point where, we're not the ones that do the analysis. The teachers are able to do that, and that empowers them. And that makes a huge difference. And that's us. That's a lot. It's a lot of data. And as we go through this each year, it changes because we'll have more to add. We'll be able to talk more about growth, and we'll be able to talk about what's happening and what the teachers have been doing, and we'll be able to see those results. Questions, comments?
Thank you.
Excellent.
It's a red mask off so everybody can hear. Okay, so thank you very much for all the data. I have some observations to share, and then I have some questions. So just for people who may not be familiar with AP exams, not all colleges take the credits, right? And some colleges will actually give you advanced placement within a category or a subject matter. You still have to take the credits at the college level, so you don't benefit from the credits that you earn taking an AP exam. But let's say instead of putting you in math 1, they'll put you in math 3. So they'll scaffold you higher, but you still have to take it. So that's
It depends on the
It
school.
depends, very school dependent.
And even if they don't, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Even if they don't take the credit to get you out of a class, they can give you the higher standing, whether it's math 1 to math 3, or I think this is the favorite of a lot of students. It might put you at sophomore standing, so you get to pick your dorm first, you get
That's huge.
the meal plan is the different meal plan. So there are other side benefits that they will give you if you come in with credits.
Right. I'm not touting the AP program, I'm just saying that this is just
That's the reality.
another.
Absolutely.
We should be telling our eighth graders about that.
So another thing I wanted to share is that I think a big reason kids take a lot of AP courses, not only to get the credits in college or to get the placement, but also because this is what the colleges are looking for. So you know from the school profile that if there's a rigorous course offered, certain colleges want to see, did this college applicant take the most rigorous courses available, which creates a conundrum for our students, because if they're the type of student who want to go to those highly selective schools, they're almost forced to have to take what's called the 5-4, so the science, the math, the social studies, the English, and the language over the course of 4 years. And they're almost forced to take those level courses in an AP level if it's offered, which leaves very little room for the electives. And I am telling you, it is an intellectual and an academic conundrum.
It's like an arms race.
Yes, and so even though the College Board has stopped with the national scholars, or whatever they're calling it, the kids know that this is what the colleges are looking for. And so whatever the College Board wants to call it at this point, it doesn't really matter, because the kids know that the colleges are looking for this.
So one of the shifts that I'm starting to hear, I haven't heard it in action, but I've heard these words being said, along with the test optional when you talk about SATs, ACTs, and test blind, which is different. Test optional means it can help you, it won't hurt you. Test blind means we won't even look at it. So you could take the SATs and get a perfect score. It doesn't matter, we won't know. So the next thing that I'm starting to hear is that beyond 5 AP exams, they won't look at any other. So if you take 8, 10, 31, once they see 5 exams, they're not looking at the rest. I haven't heard that in action yet, but I'm happy to at least hear that the conversation is starting.
But they're still looking on the transcript to see the course, the names of the courses. And, okay, so this school offers 50 AP courses, how many is this particular student? I'm just sharing real life
Absolutely.
anecdotes. It may not apply to every student, but trying to give you some background, I think, into some of the psychology going on, and also the stress level among the students. because of
It
that.
doesn't apply to every student, it doesn't apply to every school. So yes, there will be, and not every school is those high-end schools that have very low acceptance rates, right? The vast majority of students of schools are not of that, but, I fully understand, change takes a while. Just because the College Board says, hey, we're not counting national merit scholars, not national AP scholars anymore, and somehow they think that decree means, the sort of culture that they were a large part in creating is going to change. It's not. That takes a while, and it takes buy-in from colleges, it takes buy-ins from families. These silly rankings that look at AP participation, passing rate, where you're ranking high schools and things like that. All of that stuff, this is part of the culture we're in right now.
Sure.
And it wasn't like this 30 years ago, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like this in the future, but we're in deep right now, but there is a path out.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's part of my questions. I have one more observation. For some of the AP courses where the number of students in the classes is lower, sometimes it's a scheduling issue, because things conflict. So they end up maybe being placed out of one AP, but put into another, and sometimes there's only one section, so just, I'm not saying that you need to change that, I'm just saying that may explain some of the lower numbers in terms of the students in the class.
We'll definitely be doing a review of our master schedule, what opportunities we have to improve it. Unfortunately, sometimes a singleton runs against another singleton, so we have to make tough choices, but hoping to reduce those conflicts as much as possible will give students an opportunity to really be in the classes they're excited about.
Okay, so Anybody who had been at Dr. Koenig's coffees when we were holding them live, I guess from about 5 years ago on, knows that my perennial question, Dr. Hines knows this as well, is what opportunity is there to pull away from the AP program? But that's my big question, but until we can get to that point as a district, I have questions about the data. So now,
Can I address that question though?
Sure.
Because
It's mine too, so.
So I will say, and I've been a critic of the College Board and the AP program over the years. I will say that I am cautiously optimistic of the direction College Board is taking with the AP courses. Dr. Barrett and I were speaking about this these last several days. Some of the newer courses they've offered, I have a background in the IB program, which has a different approach. But College Board is moving more towards that where, a chunk of the score, the end of year score, the 1 through 5 score, is now being included as part of the assessments that they do, whether a presentation or report that they do during the school year. So it's no longer part of a 3-hour exam. So you might get, in some of like their AP seminar course, 60% of your grade is already determined before you sit down for the AP seminar exam. Really hands-on presentation, evaluated by the teacher, audited by the College Board. They are going to be introducing new AP courses down the road, and those courses will follow that same pathway. So they are looking to make the exam less of a, this is the only thing that counts, and make the course more connected to other courses, other disciplines, and give students a chance during the year to earn part of that score. So those are all positive signs.
yeah, because my question that I wrote down, is this the best we can do? Is this what authentic teaching looks like in a high school advanced level course? Is this what authentic learning looks like? That's always been my big thing. And so for the sake of the teachers and for the students, is this the best we can do?
So as they have revamped, I think, some of their courses, when they redid their biology course, as they revamped their world history, they knocked off 1,000 years, right, to make it a more manageable course. I think they are trying to pay attention to it. Is this the best? Listen, I think it is becoming a better way to certainly deliver some important content, give some students an opportunity. I think that their newer courses, such as the AP Capstone program, the seminar, and the research, is trying to connect the individual courses with a broader focus on research, communication skills, interpretation, collaboration. And can we recreate some of that? We can, yeah, absolutely. Right now, the cachet of the College Board, it does, let's be honest, it has some cachet still, right? Plenty of it with colleges, with parents, with students. I think that we can leverage that without getting carried away with it. Are there other programs? Cambridge has a great program. IB has a great program. There are alternatives. We're in deep with the College Board. That's not to say that we can't get out, but that's a huge discussion. And, I've been in other districts that have others, and we've explored other options in some of my previous districts. It's not the only game in town.
Can I piggyback on that? I love hearing all of that. Just to be politically incorrect for a minute, we gave our curriculum to a private entity in a public school. That's like big picture, right? That rubs me, and it's impacting our children in ways that I guess there's both positives and negatives. And anecdotally, a very respected teacher in our high school said that, should I even say, a teacher, not male, not female, said that this course is not being taught the way that this teacher wants to teach. This course is being taught the way College Board has said to teach. So for me, philosophically, you know, in an honors program, we have amazing teachers that could teach amazing honors courses
Mhm.
that would be really fantastic experiences for our children. So I know you're saying that we're in deep, and I would like us to be having a really broad conversation at some point about the talent that we have here and what we could bring to our students by thinking outside the box and not following, you know, this, I feel like we're lemmings falling off a cliff. And I'm saying a lot of really politically incorrect things.
Or anything politically incorrect, these are views. But I will say though, College Board doesn't tell you how to teach at all. Here's the content, it says here are the standards, here's what you need to cover. Knock yourself out. And I've seen different AP teachers teach the same course in very different ways. College Board doesn't tell you how to teach. There's a lot to cover. I think it's, you know, one thing I like about where we are right now with Schreiber is that you don't have the same AP course every single day, right? Because, you know, we have this block scheduling, which is good. That mirrors more the reality of a college experience. And you have the longer blocks of time. I know that in my previous school, teachers would have loved to have, instead of 40-minute periods, an hour with their kids or longer, whatever it might be. College Board doesn't tell you how to teach. This content, here's what's going to be on the exam, but how you go about doing that is up to you. And that's where getting some professional development and seeing how other folks do it in other districts and other states can be really helpful. Are there limitations? There absolutely are. What's the value? The value is, you know, well, if you've taken this, if you've taken AP US History, there's a level of confidence that, okay, covered certain amounts, colleges can feel good about it, there's a consistency, so on and so forth, and that's helpful. And there is value to that. The problem is when kids think that AP is the only thing and you can't take an elective and you better not take that music class because you need to take another AP. That's not healthy. And College Board has been a big part of creating that culture. And schools have, you know, perpetuated it. And I think the message we can do, even as we've got a whole bunch of students who wouldn't even think to challenge themselves in an AP course. That's not good, right? And then we have another subset that think that's the only thing. That's not good either. There's a medium, there's a happy medium. And I think that's a culture shift.
Sorry to interrupt
No,
your
I have more
questions.
questions, but I'll wait my turn if anybody else has questions.
I have a few questions. So first, in terms of, so thank you for a great presentation. You know, in terms of shifting away from AP, what I would say is, like, I don't want our district to be an outlier. And to the extent that anybody shifted away from AP, I think we'd be an outlier on the North Shore and in Nassau County. And so I'm not going to be supportive of that for a very, very long time. A whole bunch of other school districts do it, and I think we could consider it, but I don't think that we should be the first. I have a couple of specific questions. So for the dual enrollment, the college accounting, can you just tell me briefly, what does that look like? Because does it look like a general high school class that is taught at a different level? But I saw like all of the faculty have to have college appointments and stuff. So can you just tell me what it looks like day to day?
If I want to offer our accounting class as a dual enrollment class, right? You make that connection with Farmingdale does a lot of business ones, and that's great because it's a SUNY school too. So you make that connection at Farmingdale. They'll want to know the teacher's background. If the teacher has a major in art history, they may not want that teacher to be the teacher of an accounting class, for example. So you want to have that academic background, resume submitted, here's our curriculum.
And the college transcript has to go through.
Go with all of that. So
Yes.
it's like you're applying for a job in some ways. Here's what the course looks like at Schreiber. Will it be approved? And they may ask for a couple adjustments, make sure you're covering this. How can you leave this topic out? It's got to be included. It's a relatively painless process. That, you know, if you're an accounting teacher and that was your background, it's a piece of cake.
So it's taught 100% at Schreiber.
Oh, yeah.
The course materials have been approved basically by the partner university.
So one of the opportunities to increase the amount of dual enrollment classes would be to look at what the college we're partnering with offers, what we currently offer, and see where there's some overlap so that it's giving an opportunity to what we have in place. And then you start looking at, okay, let's see the course description. Is that, I'll give you an example of a music theory class. So if it's music theory 1, yes, we cover that in music theory 1. Here are the topics and the basic fundamentals. When you send that syllabus over to the college, they might ask you for some assessments or what really aligns to make sure that it does. And you end up sending in the fall, you send whatever grade the student earns, and you get 3 credits. If it's a full year class at Schreiber, then they would do the same thing for the spring, but typically that would end up being 2 separate college courses. So you may get music theory 1 and music theory 2 in the same year. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One thing that might be interesting to track would be the sort of post-high school experience with AP. In other words, I'd love to know, so we're getting all these students that are passing their AP exams, and that's great. But I tend to think that we don't have a good sense of like, how many students are getting credit, how many students are taking an advanced class, like you were saying, as a result of having succeeded in an AP. Just a general, and I don't know how to collect that data, but I and there could be some students who are like basically cutting a year off of their college, which is worth a huge amount of money in their, financially and to their lives. I would just sort of want to have a sense of that, because the program can have that value.
Oh, that's definitely happening. If it's not a year, it's a semester, that's absolutely happening. I don't doubt that for a moment.
Yeah, I would love to
That's
think
just the
about
benefit.
how to collect that data from our students, in the next, post-graduation for the next 2 to 3 years. And then my last question, and I'll pass the floor over, is I enjoyed seeing the comparison of our district to Nassau County. Is there any way, so I don't know what the data structure looks like, but is there any way to also compare us just to the limited number of what we call our peer districts, like the North Shore schools?
You would need full cooperation of other districts to provide stuff like this, and what you will find is not many districts put out their scores like this or share them like this.
Okay, so the county data is public, and that's why we can compare it, but anything more granular
The
than that is
state
not public.
data is now, we can get the county data from Nassau BOCES, but in a generic sense.
Got
But we can't drill down and, decide to look at Manhasset's AP scores.
Okay, thank you.
You want to go back or you want me to go?
Well, it's your turn, so
Okay.
you may ask my questions, we'll see.
So I have 2 questions. One's going to be politically incorrect again. We'll do that one last. Because this is my gig. So do we currently have any gates at all for APs in any of our courses?
There are prerequisites, so you can't come into an AP exam, an AP course in 9th grade without having taken whatever 9th grade prerequisite for 10th grade. We do have recommendations that in speaking with a teacher, they may say, next year you should really consider doing this. If a student is not necessarily recommended by the teacher, they could still absolutely go into the class. So we don't have a gate of, you didn't score X, Y, and Z on this entrance exam, so you can't be in the class. We do not have that.
Okay, that's great to hear. Okay, so here we go. The sacred cow of weighted grades in advanced coursework. Where are we going with that? How do we feel about that? They're not looked at the college level anyway. They're all brought back down to whatever the standard 4.0 is. Why do we do it? Do we like it? How do we see this impacting our students and our programming?
Only 12 questions.
I don't think there's anything politically incorrect about
Not
that.
at all.
I am, so I think I've discussed this during my interview process. I come from a district where we did not weigh grades at all. And in my first few years as a principal, there was a big push to weigh them. We formed a committee, looked at it. We did not weigh courses. And I am going to, I love that about my previous school. And one of the few districts, one of the few schools that did not give any weights. The belief being, and I've heard the term rigorous, I actually, it causes me to twitch a little bit because all of our courses are rigorous. And you need to be rigorous, whether it's an AP, Regents level, or a support class. That's really the true definition of rigorous, right? It doesn't mean rigorous means really hard. It's, at the level it's appropriate, and my belief is if you are placed appropriately and you're working hard for that A- or an A or whatever, or B plus, that should have as much value as someone in a different level course that's working hard as well. That said, that is a huge deal. And, that's the kind of discussion that would have to be if we're ever move away from where Schreiber currently is. That's a discussion that has to involve a lot of folks over a lengthy amount of time. And when we reviewed it in my previous district, I will say you've got to look at reality, because in some situations, students are asked to put down their weighted grade. And if they're in a competition and they don't have a weighted grade, that actually puts them at a relative disadvantage to some of the people in some of the science competitions, so on and so forth. So when I say we didn't weigh, what I will now amend is in my previous district, we created a weighted grade of 1.075. So whatever your GPA was, if you wanted to calculate your weighted GPA, multiply your GPA by 1.075. That effectively meant that every course was weighted the same amount, and that just allowed kids to have a weighted average for a science competition or a particular scholarship. To level it out, we looked at what other schools in our area, and we wanted to put them on an even level. But whether you were in a Regents English 11 class or an AP class, your A had the same value.
In my previous district as well, Regents and AP or college classes were weighted the same.
But those were the exceptions. Most schools will weigh, 10%, 5% for honors, 10% for AP, whatever it might be. That's a broader conversation. We got a lot right now. I think that's something to maybe keep in the background, and we have to be. Some people really fight against that. That doesn't mean it's not the right fight to have, but I think it's worth asking, and people need to see there are other ways to do this.
Can I ask a follow-up question related to that?
Yeah, please.
Which is, so other than the calculation of who the valedictorian is each year, given that we don't do class rank, and if the colleges don't look at it, why does it matter one way or the other? Right, like it goes into a GPA, but who's
Because
looking at
it affects,
nobody's looking at the GPA.
because if we don't do weighted grades for all the courses, it affects which courses students take, not based on interest or passion, or they're taking them specifically for the bump.
The GPA bump.
Right, but if we're saying that the colleges then de-weight the GPAs, then the GPA bump doesn't matter, so then it doesn't matter. So that's why I'm not actually clear about this, like either the bump matters for college, or the bump doesn't matter for college.
Right.
So I'm
But it
not,
does matter for valedictorian and salutatorian.
so then, but then that's all, I think that, is that, are we talking about something other than that? That's my only question. I think this is a deeper conversation,
Yes, it
and I'm not,
absolutely is.
so that, if they're de-weighting it, that's, that's one thing.
My turn again? Okay. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to interject, so it's just a data point. Dr. Feeney, when he talks about his previous district, it's East Williston and the Wheatley School, yes?
Correct.
And Dr. Bear is Jericho, which I think is relevant to the conversation. Just saying. Okay, so now my other questions. I'm surprised you didn't ask these questions. Have
I
you-
threw out a whole bunch of stuff.
Have you looked at comparing, there's a difference, because the AP scores have no bearing on the student's GPA. have you looked at their actual grade in a class for all the coursework they've done throughout the year versus how they score on the AP exam? Is there any relevance or any benefit to doing that?
There's a deep benefit to doing that, and that gives you a sense of how the instruction and assessment is correlating to the grades. And you would like to, I would think that as a student, if I'm getting, say, a B in my AP microeconomics course, I can go into that exam thinking, yeah, I'm probably prepared for like a 3 or a 4, and maybe if I have a great day, it's a 5. So there should be a predictive aspect. It's an analysis typically have done. I think I certainly used to do that all the time, and I know Dr. Baer, we've talked about this, and it is something that will be an ongoing analysis.
Okay, I appreciate that. Have you had, I know you're both new here, I feel like you've been here a long time, but I know you haven't. Because you've accomplished so much in so little time. Have you had the opportunity to look at the, I don't like to use the word tracking, but I don't know any other word. In some courses, or for example, the math AP courses, have you had a chance to look and see what effect being in accelerated 7th grade math has on going that AP route in the
We
math?
were talking about that
And
yesterday.
same with
Talk about
science.
this, Malta, there's a reason why you can see some of the lower numbers in math. When we have a population, a graduating class, upwards of 450, you would expect in the North Shore of Long Island to see higher numbers of, say, AP calculus. The banner is what's happening, we don't have enough of a pathway for kids to get to that, so that's a discussion point. That's going to change already based on what I know is happening in the middle school, and that will continue to evolve. But yes, we're well aware there are certain, independent of any barriers at the high school, there are things prior to high school that might be preventing kids from reaching certain, having an opportunity, if they want, to take certain AP courses.
Yeah, because this for part of the overall goal that we have as a board and also as a district is opening opportunities for students. But in doing that, we also need to support them properly, likely beginning in kindergarten, right? To prepare them for these opportunities. And so I was wondering if you had been taking a look not only at the 7th grade accelerated math, but prepping those kids, whether they go into accelerated math or not in 7th grade, but prepping them early enough on and giving all of the children the supports they need. So if they do decide to take an AP exam, it's not because they were in accelerated math or accelerated science, but because they've been prepared in some other way along the way. Because I know the AP exams are intense just in terms of the workload. Forget about the content, just the workload itself is massive.
I know that this is more in Dr. Feeney's purview, thinking about vertical alignment K through 12. I can tell you that the middle school faculty, the middle school admin and I have started talking about what does it mean if we bring our departments together, our chairs together? What does curriculum mapping look like on our secondary campus? So these are conversations we're already having. The middle school really is that bridge. So Beth has this amazing responsibility to make sure that she's collaborating with the elementary people and collaborating with the high school people. And we're already having those conversations. I think I was in the district for maybe 2 days and I said, okay, what are we doing together? How do we really make sure that our students are prepared for high school? And what can we do to make sure that our high school students know what's expected of them? Our high school teachers know where the students are coming from, because it's all the same families. We know the experience of our students. So we are starting curriculum mapping and having an opportunity for our teachers to work together. I will not speak for elementary people because that's definitely way out of my lane right now, even though
We
elementary is such an important
We're a
foundation.
K-12 system, right? And, and I've spoken in many different venues about the importance of a consistency of curriculum, a consistency of opportunity, especially at the elementary school as they then feed into the middle school, providing students with opportunities. You'll see it when down the road, but, I know just from initial look that we have a relatively low percentage of 8th graders taking algebra, far lower than it should for a typical North Shore school district. And, there's a time where a lot of districts went all in and said, oh, algebra for all eighth graders, and that was the wrong move. You know, there is a medium. We're relatively low, but that is changing based on, you know, conversations with Ms. Javelin and some of the work she's doing in the school.
And of course, to get to the middle school, you need to have the elementary basis, right?
K-12 system.
So my last question, it might not be relevant anymore given all the deep dives that you're doing. But when you talked about the ENL population and economically disadvantaged population in some of these classes, I think I know the answer why. So I'm not going to ask you to explain that unless you feel that you want to. But my bigger question is, you didn't share those numbers with us. So when you say there's a lower percentage, are we talking about single digits? I mean, we're talking about really, really embarrassingly low? And are you looking at that percentage and trying to find the way, because this also is our goal as a board and as a district, are you also trying to find a way to understand why those numbers are so low and also change that and change it systemically if it
So this
doesn't?
is your concern, our concern. This is a larger conversation that fits in really with the district's DEI initiative, right?
Yes.
And being able to look and talk about data. Passing rates are great, but do we have any subgroups that really are either underrepresented or not passing sufficiently? And, you know, we saw even some of that in the breakdown when Dr. Allen presented graduation rates for the classified students the other night. So yes, this is important. It's not where it should be, is what I will say right now.
But you're on it, so I don't have to push this.
You can push away, that's
No,
your
no,
prerogative,
no,
but it's certainly on it's on the district's radar. And if you look at the DEI plan, it talks about things like engagement and participation in some of this advanced coursework as something that needs to be looked at. So we have it at this level, independent of the DEI plan, we'd be looking at that because it's important to both of us. But the district and the board has decided it's important as well, and that's why it's part of the DEI plan.
I have a piggyback on that. The Gates conversation and the fact that we have a low participation rate in the math specifically, but there's a lot of Gates at Weber where it's about, you know, having a particular grade in all of these subjects when maybe there's just a child that's really skilled in math or really skilled in the arts or, you know, in the humanities. And are we missing those kids because our Gates are prohibitive?
I think Ms. Javelin is doing a really nice job addressing those issues. Unfortunately, you know, snapping your fingers and saying all Gates dismissed, it's, you know, you need buy-in. And sometimes a gate, quite frankly, isn't maybe what's in your policy book, but it could be, you know, how we view kids and what our expectations are. And, you know, you're in this math 6 section, there's no chance you're going to be taking. Sometimes, and nobody does that consciously, but sometimes you do it subconsciously, and that's where these conversations about expectations and, you know, being aware of what one's own issues or biases might be, those are important conversations as well, because Gates take a lot of different forms. It could be in a policy book, it could be a prerequisite, it could be who's getting to accelerate back in 7th grade, or it could just be, you know, nobody's ever tapped this in. You know, I heard you playing the sax, or why don't you try this AP course or whatever it might be.
And just so I'm clear, for me, it's not only the socioeconomic conversation, but it's our students with disabilities.
All of those, yeah,
Because we need to look at them
Absolutely.
and what their access points are as well.
absolutely.
And that comes in with the supports as well. So as Dr. Feeney had mentioned, it's not just, you know, it's open enrollment, go into that class and good luck to you. It's how do we support our students in preparation to get to an AP class? And then what do we do to make sure that they have the knowledge, learning, and skills to be successful in that class?
And the support, because when it gets hard, and it will get hard, how do we support them? What words come out of the teacher's mouth? Well, you know, okay, you can change into one of the other sections, or, hey, we can do this, and in our school, we have this in place, and here are some of the things that you have to support your learning in this class. So there are a lot of,
struggle.
there are a lot of messages that can go out.
So this is a budgetary conversation, right? This is what the role of the board is, where, much like last year, we had conversations about how we could do better and what programming, what monies do we need to provide. So this will take us down that road in terms of how do we really build the proper structures that we need. And that's going to be a budgetary conversation, in some senses.
So to follow up on that, do we already have this professional development in place? And do we already have these supports in place? Even in an embryonic way, or are we really starting from scratch? And if we don't, when can district staff and parents and students expect to see those changes? So on the PD side for the teachers, and on the support side for the students.
And I said this in the past, the professional development is,
Is it happening now?
it's happening, but I think in terms of what one would expect for a district this size, maybe it's not as funded as well as one would typically expect. That said, we're using the resources we have, and teachers are collaborating. And just by sitting down and sharing some of the instructional reports and bringing in people to talk about that, I mean, this is an important part of that PD. The longer pieces are, if you're teaching a new AP course, then you should go to one of these summer institutes. That would be something we expect. And opening this opportunity to be a reader to AP teachers, some may really jump on that. So, I think you've heard, certainly from me, district-wide, PD is really important. And I know Dr. Bear used the same way for the high school. So yes, we're not waiting for the budget season or anything. We're scrambling for whatever resources we have right now. We've got a professional development day on Monday. We are bringing some outside people. This isn't about APs, to talk about the next generation science standards to all of our 4th and 5th grade teachers, and then to speak to all of our science department about some of those shifts in science, and that's going to be really important. So yes, professional development, it's critical.
And the supports within the schools for the students, whether it's social workers, helping the kids with guidance, whatever it is, helping them navigate through this coursework, and whether it's at Schreiber, the middle school.
Those are structures, whether it's also tutoring and whether it's whatever it might be. AIS, we're already setting up some additional support for students who are struggling or have been identified based on a practice test. And we're going to try to set that up right away. We've got some funding for that through one of our grants. So I said, well, why are we waiting till January to do this? Let's get this going right now. So yes, we're being attentive to that as well.
Can I'm going to put forth an ask in this vein for this committee, which is, I really like what you said about the AP readers. I thought that was really interesting and not something I thought of before, but it seems like a real opportunity. So I'd love to hear at some point at a curriculum committee meeting in the future, what the number of people that are doing or have done this in the recent past. I'm imagining like it's something you want to do on every 2 or 3 years. And then what we can do as a district to create incentives for our teachers to do this on occasion. I imagine you have to have the time to do it. I imagine you have to have some support to do it. So what can we do to create a higher percentage of teachers that are going through that? Because it seems like a great way. I mean, it seems like we're doing really well, but it seems like a great way that this school can support students.
Like a stipend or something for doing it.
Too soon? I
So-
planted that in.
I was thinking about that and I'm gonna massage it.
Okay, Dr. Black.
This is public.
Oh, look, it's 10:30. I know it's 10:30 and I apologize, we've gone so long. I want to do 2 things. First of all, we haven't heard from Dr. Hines and I want to make sure that he has an opportunity to talk. And then we'll open it to the community.
Not speaking for an hour and a half, I mean, it's very difficult. I really enjoyed listening to Sean and Katie. present much overdue information to the district. So the fact that we're talking not only about this, you saw some data points up here. I would love to, at some point, I'm not saying it should be this year, look at all the electives that we offer. Because that's the other side of this story, is the hyper focus on clearly having, whether it's a robust AP program, is clearly important. But the flip side of that, and I think Mandy brought this up there too, is what are we doing for those students to support the talents and all the different potential they have in different areas, and to try to balance that between the two. That's what makes a well-rounded student when they leave here. Because my fear is, and I don't think we're doing this, the pendulum hasn't swung this far over here with our focus on this. By the way, I've shadowed students who take 5, 6, 7, 8 AP courses, and their day really doesn't begin until they actually leave school, because then they have sport, they're in music, and some other activity, then they have all the homework, and then they rinse and repeat that. And then we're asking questions, why are students, struggling from a mental health standpoint or from a different standpoint? So for us to provide supports for, kids taking AP courses who may need some, extra support from an academic standpoint, we have to think of the electives and how we can expand that palette as well. But other than that, again, I think it's so healthy for us to have these discussions, especially in public, not only for the board trustees to hear it, but for the community here as well. I can tell you, if the data was landing on you at times, because I think it's the human condition, is to say, oh my gosh, 2017, look how high it was, and then look how low it is now, right? And you're probably asking yourself, why is that? What's going on? There's some peaks and valleys in between, but there is a story, because it is a single data point in time. Anyway, I just want to say, in the College Board, I'm not going to say in public, at least here, what I think about it, because I do think it is a monopoly. However, we have to know the game in which we're playing, the arena in which we're playing, and figure that out as we go along. So thank you for this. It was really wonderful.
So with that, now I'm sorry we're so late to open it up to the public, but please, I'm going to start with board members first, Julie and Rachel.
I'll try to be quick. I know there's a lot on this. Thank you for looking so hard at all of this. I wanted to echo something that I think a couple of board members mentioned already, which is that institutions can make decisions kind of accidentally that are made up of many small decisions along the way that start earlier. That's part of being a K-12 system. And so we've talked about Weber a little bit, you talked about elementary a little bit, but I want to highlight two things that I think are issues that lead to the high school, right? One is the gates, obviously, at Weber being very, very, very different. The gates are high to get into accelerated math. The gates are high to get into accelerated earth science. And the other piece that I actually only found out this year when my children went through it is that if you are not taking accelerated math, you're not going to know some of the math on the earth science exam. And that's something that parents should know when they're getting into it, because personally, I know several parents who decided, you know what, my kids, science is their thing. I don't want to throw them into this math track. They can't do both. I'm going to wait. And then the earth science exam comes, and they're not going to score as well on this earth science exam because they quite simply have not hit that math yet. That's an issue that we need to address. The other piece is, I think, our culture and mentality in the district needs a shift, because from what I've seen, the overall thought is, okay, 5th grade, you're still a kid. 6th grade, boom, advocate for yourself. You're in charge now. Communication with the parents totally changes. And the truth is, a system like ours that is touting whole child education should understand that not every 11-year-old is an adult who can advocate for themselves, who understands how to advocate for themselves. We have to teach them how to advocate for themselves. We have teachers at Weber who teach them executive function skills, who teach them how to advocate for themselves. And then we have many that do not. And then we're leaving things to chance and there's an inconsistency. Because a child who has really good communication with a parent at home, and a parent at home is the kind of parent who understands how to teach these things, will help them. And a child that's not communicating with their parent isn't gonna get that help. Or a child who has a parent at home who doesn't speak the language, or who doesn't have a college education, or is just socially awkward and doesn't understand how to explain to go approach the teacher, is at a disadvantage. Those are the kind of inconsistencies that a school district should make up for. We need to teach those skills. Personally, I also think that the quick change from here you are, you could be the exact same age in 5th grade, we're gonna treat you like your kid, to 6th grade, nope, you're all in, you're on your own. It's too fast. We need to change that mentality a little bit. And that nurturing that we're trying to see through Ruler and through other things at the elementary school has to carry through to Weber. We don't have to be babying them to understand that they're still children and that these are learning opportunities and that we need to teach them what some of them will natively come to on their own, but most of them won't. So that's one issue. I also think that the path for this stuff is lead at elementary school. And if I can highlight one thing that I think that we really could improve as a district, it's math. Because in the elementary school, whether or not your child gets differentiated instruction for math is entirely in the teacher's court. Teacher has 20-something kids in that class. That's a lot to put on the plate of a teacher. We should be giving them what they need in order to look at a kid and say, this is a kid who needs a little bit of math talent fostered. And I want to be clear when I say this, I'm not talking about our gifted kids. I'm talking about everybody from the middle up. And there might be a kid who's just really good at math and struggling with something else, and we can foster that math talent and push them forward. One thing I know other districts do is differentiate instruction in math across the grade. So we have protected time for math in an elementary school, they rotate them. Historically, Port Washington is very against homogeneous groupings. We see it as a bad, dirty thing. To my mind, you're allowing children to reach their full potential by grouping them with like skill levels. And because of where I come from philosophically, I would make the barriers to moving between groups very low. You see a kid that's in group A and suddenly they need a little more help or they're just displaying a little more prowess, move them around over the course of the year. So we have this static math curriculum, and then with the caveat, I'm not saying anything bad about any individual teacher. The elementary school I've experienced was a fabulous education, but we're not giving the teachers the tools for this. And then we get them to 5th grade, a very small portion of them are identified to take a double skip math test. And our double skip class is much smaller than the class in other districts. Not because our kids here are not as smart, it's because we're not preparing them for it. One of the fibs we tell ourselves is that this is a native math talent test. It's not true, math can be taught. So we need to ask ourselves philosophically, what is our goal? Is our goal to identify the 2 Einsteins in every class who can figure out this math on their own, or somehow did it on their free time and came to the understanding, or, as sometimes happens, had an older sibling and needed to study for this test? Or is our goal to identify all the kids who have a real raw talent here and push them on? So we don't lay the groundwork, and then our 7th graders get to this double skip class, and it's hard. It's known as the hardest class in Weber, a loved class, right? They love it because they're kids who flourish on a challenge. And I think that's the other piece of this kind of change is teaching kids to flourish in an environment where they have to work hard, and that's not the same as stressing them out and pushing them too hard. We can teach them to love a challenge and to be engaged in their education and to be excited about it without putting too much pressure on them. We can have those 2 things at once.
Julie?
Just to piggyback off what Ms. Gilliard was talking about, so last year, curriculum committee meeting, you all were new. And I think this is the hard thing about curriculum, right? We're a K-12 system, and we just heard about curriculum at a high school level, but as was clearly stated here today, it all starts in K and follows all the way up. We have to have a great foundation to work. So it's very hard to talk in a snapshot instance. I'm going to try to do that, but we did have a developed talent program last year that we invested in and we were looking at, which somewhat fostered some of what you were bringing up, Rachel, is like identifying the students and really identifying where their talents are, whether it's math specific, it's English specific, it's culture, creative arts specific, and how they learn. I guess my question is did that fall by the wayside, or is that something that we're continuing as part of our curricular endeavor? It doesn't have to be answered now. This is just something that we were investing in and as a board supported last year and also fell within our curriculum mapping, which is still under development. So I just was tying those pieces together as a continuation. My concern and questions all relate to what are we trying to accomplish? So I appreciated your areas of growth. I added a few more. So it's my understanding that you really have 7 pieces of information. This was our first foray into having all of this presented. And I would hope that at the next venture, when we have this topic of conversation, we can take those 7 pieces of areas of growth and we can incorporate them to say, guess what? This is the next year after the presentation, and this is how we've done. This is how we've increased. This is how we've decreased, and this is where we need more funding. And our focus on funding should be from a professional development standpoint, it should be to eliminate and provide more access to people. So I appreciate that we created a foundation today.
And accountability.
And accountability.
For sure.
And
That's
I
why we
would
put them down.
hope that next year at a curriculum committee meeting or a board meeting at whatever level, we now take this as our foundation and we enhance it for us so that we can really take that accurate look forward. Because as you said, you both have walked into this. A lot of this has been going on. I'm right. So I'd like to see them what is implemented and where we can most effectively spend our dollars. And I would love to see this paired with a financial component at some point as well, to see how we're effectively and efficiently using our monies, and also any grant opportunities. I know you're utilizing grants for this, but we should also be looking to see, do we need someone to help us look for more grants, right? In order to see that we can be more proactive, because there is money out there that we may not have the staff or time to take care of and look for. So that's my comment. You answered all my questions so far.
This should be an annual presentation to the board.
Yes.
The next few will be much shorter because
Yes.
there's a greater understanding, but this is an annual presentation. There's that accountability piece at the end. That changes as, we see shifts, improvement, changes. So, absolutely, that's why it's out there. This is public, this is to the board, this is public. We're putting it out there.
I may or may not be on the board, so in the future, I'm just saying out loud that I would love to see that this does continue forward, because it lays such a really great, well done, foundation. So thank you.
Well,
George?
something is absent, we think you're going to be involved. I just want to say, I totally agree with Ms. Gilliam. Preparation for math should not be looked at as a gifted, and it could be gifted, only preparation. Math is the key that opens everything, including sports. And I totally agree with you, because we have gone through that experience. It's really not a good thing that is going on from 5th, even before 5th, you can go even in 3rd grade, leading up to 5th, going into the middle school. Because you go into a 6th grade math double scale class, and you get 1. There is also a methodology of teaching math. And I know I have sent Dr. Hines innumerable material. Soon I will be doing it with Dr. Finney. And the board knows exactly what I have been understanding. And the problem is the culture. Is the culture going to change the attitudes about teaching and how to approach things? I am we're very familiar with Dr. Finney's district and Jericho, Dr. Grishman's attitude about all this. So why is it when you look at the statistics that we rank, yeah, okay, fine, but for the lower level of a lot of programs, you know what programs I'm talking about, Dr. Fitty. I mean, it shouldn't be for Washington. There are plenty of very capable students here. And I'm not talking only gifted. This is not only for gifted students. I'm talking about the regular students. A lot of the parents you say, well, you know what?
Well, I mean, I think, the math is, very problematic in this district, the way it's taught, who gets in. We have math scores, they're not being used, effectively, easily. What Rachel has said is in fourth and fifth grade, you can have these homogeneous groups by looking at these kids' math scores, like the top 85%. Because it depends what your goal is. If you want to have more double skip kids going into taking the seventh grade accelerated math in sixth grade, well, you have to start training them in algebra in fourth and fifth grade. And therefore, you would have to do a pull-out program and maybe train one particular elementary teacher at each school to do that, so that these kids can get that, and then they'll be ready to take an accelerated algebra class in sixth grade. And then continuing that, then they would take the algebra regions in seventh grade, geometry regions in eighth grade. And then, of course, you would have more kids in the multivariable class that you have at high school, which right now, some years can't even be run because there's two people. Currently, the two people that do get into double skip is because either they had a parent who was teaching them this material. I mean, it's just basically, it's not necessarily native genius. I mean, we've done a lot of that. We've done a petition. We had people sign the petition. It's gone nowhere, So the middle school itself, because there's a gatekeeper, so therefore the PEP teachers will basically decide who gets in and who doesn't, so it's a decision. And that criteria talks about something that when we had the review by the gifted, many years ago, we had the gifted review. And she did say in that review that you shouldn't use certain things like maturity. That should not be used. And in the criteria to get into the advanced math, that is one of their criteria. So we're almost going against our own, what does it mean to be mature? It's very subjective. And then the middle school, in itself has no math team. I mean, we have no math counts. All the North Shore districts have that. So there isn't a culture within the middle school to develop that. It's lacking completely. And so and this would affect regular accelerated. If you choose not to go into the double skip program in sixth grade, then, but you at least have the trainings, then you'll be a stronger single accelerated kid, which means then you'll have more eighth graders taking algebra in the eighth grade. And then, we have, so it's a lot of weakness that I see for really rigor, because it's not about single accelerated here. The algebra, it's hard, but why? You have to look at also how it's being taught. I mean, kids are taking an exam, they don't even have time to finish it. Is anybody looking at how this actually class is being taught? Because that's not rigor. Not having the time to finish an exam is not rigor. So it's very disappointing. And then when you look at the numbers, when we did the petition, we looked at all the North Shore schools. There's 20 kids in double skip and sixth grade. But forget double skip, you could have more just accelerated kids. But that's the weakness.
What I will say, and thank you, I have said this, I'll repeat it. Literacy and numeracy, the foundation to what we do at this district. And yes, in high school, we're a K-12 system. This is the end result. We need to have a strong foundation in literacy and numeracy, right? Without a doubt. There are a lot of wonderful things that are happening. Are there some issues, concerns? Of course there are. And I don't disagree having the extra clubs with math counts to support those kids and to encourage those kids. Those are great opportunities. And those are easy things to put in place. The gates at the middle school are changing. Already the counts right now for accelerated students are dramatically different. So, you know, when I can say that in our district, only 25% of our 8th graders are geared for the algebra regions, which is a very low percentage for North Shore District, that will be different next year. And I had nothing to do with it, other than encourage in my conversations with Ms. Jacqueline.
But I do agree with that, I hate to interrupt, but the way the class is run, it's a whole, you know, you're gonna put kids in there, but I don't know how well prepared they're going to
But
be.
this goes back to even the conversation about the AP courses. Just because we put them in these classes doesn't mean hands off, you're on your own. It's supporting them. It's supporting them both inside the classroom with professional development for the teachers and maybe different ways, bringing in math specialists to help, because it's a change. It's a different way of instruction. And those are all things. We have a lot of excellent practices out there that we can bring, and Port has a lot of wonderful practices, right? And we want to leverage those as well.
I just have to add one more thing that I don't think was actually discussed here, and it's a little bit concerning to me, is that, yes, you could do all the professional development you want and have them go and grade, but is there, I mean, no matter if you're taking an AP class, bio honors, math, is there a certain required number of assessments, points of assessment in that quarter that student should have? Is it, or are students then being, because for example, if I'm in an AP class, do I get my quizzes back? Do I get to see my mistakes? You know what I mean? Are there multiple assessments? Because, before you take that final unit test, what support are we giving? What are the grade policy requirements that every department should have?
So this is a broad conversation, and we're way past time, with all due respect, right? So there are plenty of issues to look at all the time, and that's part of getting folks together, which we're doing on Monday, to talk about department-wide issues. At some point, everything you brought up will be discussed. It's just not going to happen in a week or two.
Right.
Those are all important issues, so I'm sorry. We're running late.
Rachel?
I just want to have one more quick question. Or it's not a question, sorry, one more quick comment. It's really out of fairness to the three of you. It's my 6th year sitting on the school board. The first year I was on the school board, there was somebody different sitting in all of your seats. And I just want to know that when Dr. Hines got here, he met with each of us and he said, what are the top issues in Port Washington to you? It was private one-on-one conversations. And two of the things I said to him that I thought were most important were cultural. I said, changing the culture of no in Port Washington, whereby whatever we've been doing is fine, and we're gonna stick with it unless we're really convinced to do something else.
It's on the wall, by the way.
And this idea that we all have to think everything here is wonderful and perfect, because that idea gets in the way of improving stuff. And we can think that Port Washington is fantastic for a lot of reasons and still think that there's room for improvement. So out of fairness for the three of you, I want to note that a conversation like this would never, ever have happened at a curriculum committee with this level of honesty 6 years ago. Never. And a lot of our parent activists are sitting in the room, and they probably will agree with me. The previous administration would refuse to have this conversation at all. And so you're getting all this honest feedback because you're all administrators who are very open to honest feedback and open to trying to look at what's good and keep it and what needs a little work and improve that. And I really appreciate that about the three of you, and thank you for having these conversations.
These are not my data. These are not her data. These are our data.
Right.
And we've got to share it. That's the only way we're going to get better. You get everything out there. That's what you need to know, what you can clean, what you can celebrate, and move forward.
But
thank you.
that openness already is the first monumental step that gets us to improving anything. And that's the piece that parent activists and the board can't control, right? If we have administrators like the three of you are who want to have these conversations and really look at stuff, that's amazing. That's half the battle right there.
Next time we try to have them in 90 minutes
I'm
instead of 2 hours.
I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone. This was an amazing conversation again, and I'm sorry we kept you, and we're so grateful for your time and your expertise.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you, Ray, in 2 weeks.
This will be posted up to the,
No.
See you,
Right.
I'll see you.
Just a little break for a gas.
Or got postponed for ours.
Oh,
Just checking
I was
back.
wondering, I was like, oh, he's still here with us.
Yeah, no, I was planning on walking out at 10:28, and then I got an email that my bosses
Yes.
had an emergency visit.
Oh, nice. That's big.
Awesome handling for me.
Oh, good.
That's what? You know, that's, I would have missed. That's not like it's going to be a fever, but I was like, I love this topic about whether we should even try to get.
Any discussion? You don't want to.
Kathleen,